Yo, what is up guys, Chillfeed here, and over the past couple of days I've been testing literally every single legendary assault rifle we currently have in the game, and as you can see in the title of the video, I've come to the conclusion of a top 5 of 29 legendary assault rifles in Borderlands 3. There are a few things I'd like to mention before we get into the list itself though. First of all, please keep in mind that although I did test all of these weapons on at least 2 different characters on Mayhem mode 4 and some of them even in true takedown mode in the raid, the ranking on this list is still my personal opinions, so please don't dislike the video just because one of your favorite weapons might not have been included in my top 5. What I absolutely encourage you to do though is to leave a comment of your top 5 list, or maybe just your favorite assault rifle that I did or didn't include, and just let me know why. I will have 2 honorable mentions at the end of the video, so make sure to stay tuned until then. And now without further ado, let's find out how many dahl assault rifles actually even made the list after the patch, or if there are any at all. Kicking things off on the number 5 spot is the Alchemist. Manufactured by Torque, and it therefore has to feature a lot of. This beautiful looking weapon has the unique ability to deal not only shock damage with gyro jets to your enemy, but each shot will deal shock damage to yourself. This makes it perfect in combination with the transformer sheet to keep your sheets up at any time by just shooting the weapon and damaging yourself, but this also has some amazing synergies with Amaro's skill Mindfulness, for example, or just an elemental projector artifact. The weapon overall has some great potential on all 4 Vault Hunters. Zane and Amaro can make use of their speed boosting skills and gear to increase the damage of the exploding projectiles, whereas Amaro can also increase the elemental damage by quite a bit. The same thing goes for Moze, who can also stick a ton of projectiles on your enemy, and then Flag can just get crits everywhere with his fadeaway skill for amazing damage. Unfortunately, unlike most other Torque weapons, you do not have the ability to toggle between sticky and impact for your projectiles, and the weapon will always shoot gyro jets that increase in damage by 9% for each stuck projectile that you can land on your enemy. This can make it a little tricky when using the weapon for mobbing, since even though the damage is nice, you most of the time have to reload the Alchemist in order to finish them off. But the good thing about this is you will deal shock damage at first, almost always draining your enemy shields, and then upon reloading you deal devastating incendiary explosions to finish off your enemy. And as you can see, where the Alchemist also shines is against bosses with an easy to hit crit spot like our good old friend Grave Rod on Eden 6, so not quite the best weapon overall for mobbing, pretty good against bosses, the amazing ability to make good use of one of the best shields in the game, and a reference to an amazing anime. If you want to get yourself an Alchemist, you have to kill Heckle or Hyde respectively, who can also be found on Eden 6 as a rare enemy in Jacob's estate. Moving on from one beautiful looking weapon to another, this time is the always consistent, always reliable Rowan's Call from Jacobs. The weapon has been a fan favorite ever since the release of Borderlands 3, and rightfully so. What's there not to love about an elemental Jacobs weapon, with one part being the classic Jacobs design we love, while the alien Baron makes this gun look so special and kinda outlandish. But it's not just the looks of this weapon that is amazing, it's also the ability to return 2 bullets into your magazine and then ricochet 2 more bullets towards the nearest enemy every time you land a crit, making it possible to never run out of ammo, provided your aim is good enough, of course. With its emphasis on getting as many critical hits as possible, and with the element shock, incendiary or radiation, it is a weapon that is suited for any character in any mobbing situation. Although the recoil can be a bit tough to handle sometimes, and the magazine size is not quite as big as the one of Illusion's Call for instance, I think the Rowan's Call is a lot more fun to use, and with its higher damage it definitely outclasses the Illusion's Call in higher difficulties as an assault rifle, and deserves its spot on number 4 on my list. Again, if you want one of these, you can just farm the Slaughter Star 3000 and defeat the Red Rain, who's one of the bosses in there for the highest chance to drop it, but just like the Alchemist, it is also a world drop, so if you don't want to sit through 5 rounds of a Circle of Slaughter, you can basically farm anything else and hope for the best. One of the assault rifles that benefited the most from the recent 35% damage buff is the always corrosive Dahl assault rifle with the name Breath of the Dying. There's not too much to say about this weapon other than the ability to switch between fully automatic and a 5-shot burst, and a relatively big magazine. Oh, and of course the big corrosive explosion after killing an enemy that releases big corrosive balls in all directions, which makes this gun pretty awesome if there are a large number of enemies next to your target. This is another great weapon for all characters, although I would say it's best utilized on Zane together with the Seeing Dead class mod, and of course Amara for bonus elemental damage, and because Amara can get maximum potential out of everything. The weapon is 100% worth getting from the Blinding Banshee on Necrotrofeo in Desolation's Edge, and that is not just the case if you are a Diablo 2 fan. One of my absolute favorite weapons in the entire Borderlands franchise, and probably my favorite assault rifle in Borderlands 2 and 3, is coming in at number 2 and is the Lovely Becca. I don't know what it is about this gun, but I love everything from the design, the unique ability, its feel while playing with it, being a Jacobs, and besides all of that, the gun is pretty powerful too, as you can see. It's even decent against some bosses, which is pretty rare for an assault rifle, to be honest. What makes this gun so amazing is that it shoots as fast as you can pull the trigger, and every time you do, it shoots a projectile that splits into 2 more projectiles after a certain distance, making it possible to hit 3 bullets on your enemy at the cost of just 1 bullet. And in Borderlands 3, with the introduction of more unique weapon trays, critical hits of course will also ricochet 1 bullet at the nearest enemy. I love using this thing on Flag with its insanely high critical hit bonuses, but it works really good on any character and is just so much fun to play with. So if you haven't by now, you should definitely finish all of Sir Hammerlock's legendary hunt challenges to be rewarded with one. It is a little tricky to farm this thing for good anointments though, especially on console, but if you join my Discord server via the link in the description or my pinned comment, I'm sure you will find some people there who are willing to trade or gift you one, and if you are on PC, you will get a good one there for sure. And as I already mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do have a few honorable mentions that might not be on the list instead of the Alchemist, but are still some pretty good assault rifles, and I will try to explain why they didn't make it before we get to my number 1 best legendary assault rifle. One of those 2 weapons has to be the Blood of Dictator assault rifle, and I've seen so many comments on YouTube that were saying that this might be the best assault rifle in the entire game, and while I do agree that it can be very good and it is able to deal some serious damage, especially up close and against larger enemies and bosses, I really don't like the mechanic of this weapon. I just hate the inability to sprint or jump when you switch to the bipod mode, and I feel like the weapon is not as satisfying to use without it when you see the 2 other bullets missing your targets left and right. So it's an assault rifle that pretty much forces you to stand right next to your target to maximize its potential and switch modes or switch with another weapon even in order to move properly. But I have to admit that when it does work at its maximum potential, this weapon is a beast in terms of damage, and that's why I had to include it on here somewhere. And by the way, in my opinion, it's one of the best designed weapons in the entire game, and sometimes looking good is way more important than doing damage. The other weapon I wanted to include as an honorable mention is for quite the opposite reason actually, and it's because I really like using the laser exploder from Torque and I love everything about that gun, but ever since Mayhem Mode 4 got introduced, I feel like this weapon with the most perfect name for it is lacking a bit in the damage department, so it ultimately didn't make my top 5, but it will always be one of my favorite weapons to use and you should give it at least a try if you haven't already. And now, at number 1, the second Dahl assault rifle on my list that in my opinion was pretty underrated even before the 35% damage bonus, is the legendary Star Helix, and just like the Becca, this weapon has the potential to hit 3 bullets at the cost of 1 on your enemy. Unlike the Becca though, this assault rifle will always be fully automatic with another alternative firing mode, and oh boy is it awesome when you can land those 3 projectiles on your enemy consistently. It is just a little bit tricky to get used to at first though, since you can't really predict where the 3 projectiles will hit on the same spot every time. But once you do get used to the projectile pattern, you will do some serious damage. This weapon was definitely the best weapon I was using in the true takedown mode, which is the footage you can see in the background, and even though it is not my most favorite assault rifle on this list, it definitely deserves to be number 1 on here, just for the sheer power this thing has. It is also pretty cool to get this weapon since it will have the highest chance to drop from the power troopers that are located at the Atlas HQ on Promethea, and I didn't even know about this Power Ranger Easter egg for maybe a few weeks after the game released. Luckily for you, this mini boss group will now spawn more frequently than it did back then, so there's an easier chance to get this weapon now. So that's it, my top 5 out of 29 legendary assault rifles in Borderlands 3, and I must say, after testing all of them excessively, assault rifles feel definitely like one of the weaker type of weapons overall in the game. I mean, all of those that I mentioned are pretty awesome, even compared to other pistols, SMGs and whatnot, but most of the assault rifles felt just decent at best, and a lot of them were just straight up bad, like the Bearcat or Tribolt for instance. And these two might even be in the top 5 worst legendary weapons in general. I'm definitely grateful for Gearbox deciding to buff the dahl assault rifles, and I hope they continue to take a look at the weaker weapons in the game first instead of nerfing the better weapons. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this top 5 list, and like I said, let me know down in the comment section about your favorite assault rifles, and if you did enjoy the video, why not leave a like on here and subscribe to my channel, it would help me out a lot. And with that being said, I'll see you in my next one.